genuine thanks to Jonathan Fall for coming along to speak to us today. I think you may have a job on your hands convincing one or two people in this room. However, you will be treated absolutely with civility. Of that I can promise you. For those that don't know, Jonathan Fall is a European Commission veteran, I think would be a reasonable description, and he's been here for 37 years, but he now finds himself heading up as Director General the Task Force for Strategic Issues related to the UK referendum. So he is, at the moment, one would have thought, in the run-up to the summit, really quite busy. This is of interest to the UK delegation, but more broadly, other members of our group would like to ask some questions as well. So the format this morning is that Jonathan Fall will speak, give a presentation. We will then move into questions, but I would ask you, please, to ask questions and not to give speeches. And if we get good, pithy questions and we get answers that are similar, then everybody that wants to ask a question should, in the space of the next hour, be able to have a go. So they're the rules of engagement, and you're very welcome, and over to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Good morning to you all. It's a pleasure and honor to be here. I thought I would start by telling you a little bit about what I do, what the task force I head does, and then say a few words about where I think we stand. As you know, the President of the Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, asked me to head a very small task force, and it's half a dozen people, to coordinate the work of the Commission in responding to the British Prime Minister's concerns and essentially to advise the Commission on its position in this context. I have a small team. They're by no means all British. See if I can remember who they are. We have sitting next to me a Pole, a French woman, a Dutchman. I have back in the office a Dane, a Cypriot, a fellow Briton, and an Irish woman, and a German. And that's it. But of course, I have the entire master ranks of the Commission behind me. And we have been busy essentially in two phases so far. Firstly, there was a phase leading up to the Prime Minister's letter of the 10th of November to European Council Tusk, which set out clearly the issues of concern to him, to the British government, and we have been concentrating since then on how to respond to those concerns. And before that, there were a series of meetings with British officials and occasionally with officials of other member states too, to plan for what we saw coming, which was finally set out in the letter of the 10th of November. So the 10th of November letter, which I'm sure you've all seen, is very much the text which guides us. That's what the United Kingdom's government says it wants dealt with, and we is larger than simply the Commission. We includes, and perhaps includes principally the people working on this in the Council of Ministers and in President Tusk's office. We have been engaged in a series of meetings since we received this letter with British officials, but also with officials from other member states. That's at the civil service level. And then at the political level, of course, as you're all aware, British ministers, the Prime Minister leading them, have been engaged in discussions with their European counterparts in a series of meetings held sometimes in London, but the Prime Minister has travelled quite extensively, as has the Chancellor of the Exchequer and the Foreign Secretary. This had a first airing in the European Council back in December, as you all know, and it was agreed then to come back on February the 18th and 19th, which is a few weeks away now, for a further discussion. I know there's a lot of speculation in the media about how conclusive this meeting might or might not be. I don't know. But what I can say is that on the 4 main issues set out by the Prime Minister in the letter, they're all complicated, they're all difficult, there are no doubt political issues arising from them, and there are certainly legal issues arising from them. They are all being discussed. I don't know precisely where things will stand as we go into the European Council on the 18th, but under the aegis of the Council Secretariat and President Tusk's office, we are very busy now, as our chair said, in trying to finalize a set of papers which can be sent out to the heads of state or government so that they can prepare for their meeting on the 18th and 19th of February. If you do the reverse engineering from the date of that meeting, they need papers sometime in advance for all the consultations they have to carry out at home in their capitals. So we're not very far away from a day when a set of documents for the European Council could be issued if the item is maintained on the agenda of the European Council on the 18th and 19th. So if that is the case, papers will be issued, then there will be a much more widespread debate about the way in which ideas have developed on how to respond to the categories set out by the Prime Minister. Now, you know what they are. They're called economic governance, competitiveness, sovereignty, and immigration. As I said, some are more difficult than others, but none is easy. Economic governance relates to the relationship between the countries sharing the euro as a currency and the other member states in the Union not using the euro as their currency. All of those countries are part of the same organization, the same single market, and organizing the relationships between them is an important issue. It was an important issue, I think, already in the discussions leading to the creation of a banking union, but the Prime Minister has highlighted that as an issue which will need consideration in these discussions, and there have been already considerable exchanges on that. The second category is called competitiveness and relates to the activities, the policies of the European Union geared towards making our economy more competitive and creating the growth and jobs that we need. And I won't go through the detailed points the Prime Minister makes. The Juncker Commission believes that it is already working very largely in that direction, and we're pleased to see that a lot of the initiatives we have taken on the single market, on the capital markets union, on trade policy have been welcomed by the British government. So I think we are generally going in the right direction, but no doubt there will be a detailed discussion in the European Council on that, and in particular perhaps an important discussion on how best to measure the reduction of regulatory burden on businesses. There is a category called sovereignty, which relates to the notion of ever closer union among the peoples of Europe, which is contained in the treaties, as you know, what it means, what it doesn't mean, what it means for a member state which has opt-outs from considerable areas of importance in European affairs, as the United Kingdom does. And it relates to the role of national parliaments in the EU's decision-making process. And there are lots of ideas about how all of that could be explained, improved, reformed, and so on. And finally, there is the category which the Prime Minister's letter refers to as immigration, which we understand as the complex of issues around free movement of workers within the European Union and the impact of welfare, social security systems in that particular context. That is often described as the most difficult issue. It has perhaps attracted the most attention. I confirm it is far from an easy one to deal with, but I don't think anybody should think that it is the only difficult issue. There are others too, and as I sit here today, in all honesty, I do not know what will come out of the European Council in 2 or 3 weeks' time. I don't think anybody knows. But we hope that leaders will have a very good discussion. If agreement can be found, so much the better. The Commission is not a direct negotiator in this process. Jean-Claude Juncker likes to describe us as a facilitator. We want to facilitate an agreement. We make no bones at all about the fact that we want the United Kingdom to remain a member of the European Union. We think that is in the European Union's interest, and therefore we want to help find a fair deal for the United Kingdom, responding to the British government's concerns, but a deal which is also a fair one for all the member states of the European Union as well, and we are trying our best to help that process move forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm sure many of us in the room would agree that it is probably in the European Union's interest that Britain remains a member of the European Union, but the referendum, of course, is about whether it's in the UK's interests. Right, let's kick off. As I said, the ground rules are very simple. Let's have questions that are short and pithy, and hopefully that way we can rattle through. I'm going to start asking Paul Nuttall to ask the first question.
Thank you, Jonathan, for entering what you may well consider to be the lion's den, but I'll start with this. Can you give us any assurances today that if the result of the referendum is to leave the EU, that the European Union will not insist on another referendum and another referendum until the EU gets the answer it wants, just as has happened on numerous occasions in Ireland?
Well, no, I don't think this is the lion's den. I do have a son called Daniel, actually, but I'm always pleased to come to the Parliament and discuss with you, honourable members. The European Union doesn't insist on a referendum. The choice of having a referendum was one finally for the British Parliament, and the Referendum Act, as we know, has been adopted, is now in force. That is a matter for Britain, as other referendums in other member states have been a matter for their democratic processes. So that is not our business at all, and to be honest, I can't speculate about what might happen after the referendum. My job is focused on responding to the Prime Minister's requests.
No, thank you. I suspect what Paul was getting at was Mr. Juncker does have form on this. That you know, after the French referendum and after the Irish referendum, he was alleged to have said, well, they'll have to vote again. And I guess that's what Paul was driving at. We're going to have a question from our Swedish delegation, from Peter Lundgren.
Thank you. First of all, let me apologize for my colleagues that, as usual, have a hard time being in meeting in time. But my question is, given the fact that Mr. Juncker went out and said, as an advisory to the people of Netherlands, that he actually warned them for voting against in the referendum about Ukraine, is it, because it could lead to a continental crisis, he says, is it actually appropriate for Mr. Juncker to do a thing like that, to say, to recommend a member state how to vote or not to vote? And is it that kind of play we will also be seeing when it comes to the British referendum?
Well, the referendum hasn't even been called yet. I am not responsible for anything to do with the Dutch referendum. My job is to advise on the Prime Minister's requests in relation to the British referendum. As I said, the Commission's view is perfectly clear. Sorry, am I using the wrong one? Sorry. We do believe that the best outcome for all member states would be that the United Kingdom remain a member of the European Union. We do not intend to campaign in the referendum in any way. That's a matter for the British people.
Thank you very much. That's very interesting. That was a very interesting answer. I'm sure there'll be some questions on that. But that was a very, very interesting answer. And for those that don't know, what Peter's question was getting at is there's going to be a UK referendum by the end of 2017, although more likely I think this year, perhaps even as early as June. But what we do know for certain is that there's going to be a referendum in the Netherlands on the 6th of April about the proposed arrangements with the Ukraine. So just in case people didn't get the context of that question. Our next questioner is going to be Roger Helmer.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Fall, can you confirm my understanding that there is no legal limit on the amount of money which the Commission can spend on propaganda in the UK referendum campaign? Can you also tell us how much the Commission intends to spend in that way, both before the regulated period of the referendum and during the referendum campaign? Will itemised accounts be published detailing what was spent? And finally, would you agree with my view that it is an affront to democracy for foreign institutions to spend taxpayers' money in Britain seeking to influence the outcome of a British referendum?
I can give a very simple answer to that. The Commission will not spend a penny on propaganda in the referendum campaign. We do not intend to indulge in propaganda at all. I don't think we ever do, by the way. And as I said, and some of you seem to react as though it were a novelty, but we've said this in answers to parliamentary questions, I think from some present in this room, that we have no intention of participating directly in any referendum campaign. We never do, and the United Kingdom will not be different from previous ones. Yes, I say directly, and I'll be perfectly frank about that. Of course, the normal business of the European Union will continue, and of course, the United Kingdom remains a member state of the European Union throughout this period, and I hope for a very long period thereafter. During that period, business as usual will continue to be conducted in all 28 member states and by the institutions here in Strasbourg. So that will not stop, but we do not finance or engage in propaganda activities, and we will not.
No, I'm sure that's right. But don't you call it information instead? I mean, I say this because as somebody who was actively involved in both the Lisbon referendum that took place in Ireland, you know, when I went back for the second referendum, I mean, from Dublin Airport to the centre of town, I mean, virtually every single billboard had been taken up by the European Commission, and you may not call it propaganda, but giving the Irish people information about how good EU membership had been for Ireland. And so the question, you know, if you're saying that the European Commission will not spend any money at all during the regulated period, and Roger raised the question of the regulated period, the Electoral Commission ruled on this yesterday, surprisingly, and the regulated period actually begins on Monday. All right, so you know, any organisation that is spending money on the Remain side or the Leave side, you know, has to start counting the monies and reporting the monies from Monday. So I just want to sort of try and pin this down. Are you saying there will be no advertisements paid for by the European Commission from Monday onwards?
The European Commission will, in the United Kingdom, as in the other 27 member states, continue to inform citizens, businesses, consumers, and so on about its activities. That is inherent in the Commission's task. We're not going to close down our spokesperson service. We're not going to close down our offices in the United Kingdom. We're not going to close down our Director General Communications, nor will this House, I suppose, close down its information activities. But you asked a question about propaganda. We will not do that. We will not participate actively. We will not finance campaign organizations in the referendum. We never do.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move to our Italian delegation, and Pier Nicola Pedicini has a question for you.
Grazie.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I have got a question, please, on the implications that there may be for other member states because of this negotiation between the United Kingdom and the European Union. And in particular, I wanted to ask what the main topics were that are being negotiated on an opt-out clause that would allow the UK not to apply European legislation, for example. Can you tell us about this opt-out clause and how it's going to affect certain issues, and then whether such clauses could then be applied by other member states? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, the implications for other member states are a matter for them and cannot really be analysed and judged properly until we know what the implications are of. In other words, what the agreement is, and that's when an agreement is reached. Now, in saying that, I'm not seeking to avoid the question. Of course, all member states, including Italy, are involved in the process and in the discussions, both bilaterally with us, with the United Kingdom, and increasingly among leaders, among ambassadors, bringing together all 28. And of course, each member state will be looking at these issues, the ones set out in the Prime Minister's letter, and considering possible responses to them in the light of what it means for them at home. That is perfectly natural, and when the Italian Prime Minister comes to the European Council, he will have all that uppermost in his mind, as will all of his colleagues. Now, the solutions that are found in response to the British Prime Minister's letter may well be of general application, and they may well provide interpretations and mechanisms which all member states will be able to use. As we said, we want something which is fair for the United Kingdom, but is also fair and reasonable for the others as well. We should seek to, I think, improve the functioning of the European Union through this process so that all member states feel comfortable in it.
Thank you. Could I call upon Stephen Wolfe, please?
Thank you, Nigel. Thank you, Mr. Fall, for coming today. It's very kind of you to provide us with some questions, answers to our questions, and often we learn more from not what has been said, but what is not being said by yourself. And we'll be listening very carefully for that. You've made it very clear of the much narrower role that you have in terms of providing advice for the Commission in terms of the Prime Minister in relation to these negotiations. And for us, of great concern to the British public, is that in relation to freedom of movement. We know that freedom of movement, or rather the end of freedom of movement into the United Kingdom, is not on the table. What we understand is being requested is that Mr. Cameron's idea for an emergency break on EU migration to the UK should be considered and accepted. Firstly, I'd like a confirmation, is that true? Is that part of the package that's being requested? And secondly, if it is true, why does Mr. Cameron not already seek that emergency break now? He has the power, he has the opportunity. Britain is a member of the European Economic Area. Under Articles 112 and 113 of Chapter 4, the safeguarding measures on the agreement of the European Economic Area, Mr. Cameron could have sought this years ago if he felt it was a problem. He could have sought it a year ago or 6 months ago. You have, as you said, the whole of the Commission behind you, including all the legal advisers that are there. Surely, as part of this legal advice, Mr. Cameron would have been aware, either from yourselves or from his own team, of this provision, and therefore its use. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I can't speak for Mr. Cameron, and I cannot comment on why he hasn't sought something. What we know is that he's asked in the letter for the 4-year delay in eligibility for in-work benefits for workers from other member states, and that derives from a commitment made by his party in its manifesto in the last general election in Britain. And that he has also said and written that he is prepared to consider other ways of meeting his objectives. There has been a lot of speculation, I've seen it too, about what may or may not be in a final package, what alternative means there may be. I've read about emergency breaks and so on, which are a mechanism already used in other parts of the EU's activities. I don't know where this will come out. We'll have to see, but we take the British Prime Minister's concerns very seriously. And of course, we all heard in the December European Council the reactions of other member states to the ideas that the Prime Minister had put forward. So this is a difficult issue, there's no doubt about it. Free movement of people within the European Union, free movement of workers is fundamental to the notion of a single market. And we also know that free movement, and this goes across the whole range of free movement rights, goods, services, capital and people, is not unconditional. And the argument is about, among other things, precisely what conditions, in what circumstances may be placed on that conditional right. And some of the ideas, no doubt, are more likely to secure agreement in the European Council than others, but until we've actually been there in a couple of weeks' time, we won't know. There are very good lawyers in the Commission, but there are pretty good lawyers in London too, no doubt, in Whitehall, and every member state will be looking at the legal implications for its people, its interests, as they watch these developments. So it's not an easy task that is before the leaders of Europe. But I think the other thing that the December European Council showed was that there is a very strong desire on the part of the other 27 leaders to accommodate, to respond to the British Prime Minister's concerns and, if possible, to keep the United Kingdom in the Union.
Thank you. Margot Parker.
Good morning, Mr. Fall. The Prime Minister's desire for a declaration that the EU as a whole is a multi-currency union, is that possible or compatible with the treaties without treaty change? Is it not the case that it is widely opposed? And finally, could it be done?
Well, I think what a lot of people are saying is let's look at the facts pragmatically. And the pragmatic facts are that the euro is shared by 19 countries, and that the other 9 have a variety of different relationships, statuses in respect of the euro, and 2 of them, Denmark and the United Kingdom, have, with slight differences, opt-outs. They are not obliged to join the euro. The United Kingdom is not obliged to join the euro, and the current British government has said very clearly that it does not intend to do so. Nor, by the way, does it intend to join the banking union, which is also bound up with some of these debates. That is a fact. And in that factual world in which we live, it is perfectly reasonable to discuss the way in which relationships are organized in a single market, in a European Union, with different currencies. That's the world we live in. And that, as I said earlier, has already been the subject of legislation, debate, discussion in this House, in the Council, when the banking union mechanisms of the single supervision system and the single resolution system were set up. And ways were found to make sure that there was no discrimination on grounds of currency or location of transaction or businesses, and that recourse to the EU budget, where necessary for Eurozone purposes, because there is no Eurozone budget, would give rise to compensation on a pro rata basis for non-Euro countries. Those are things that have already been agreed, written into law, and done. So we have something to work on. My hope would be that on that basis, leaders could agree a sensible set of relationships reflecting the fact that there are several currencies operating in the member states. And of course, let's not be naive about it, that the United Kingdom has the biggest financial center in the whole of the Union and is the one country saying, I have an opt-out and I do not intend to join. So we have to accommodate that reality, and my hope is that that will be possible.
Thank you. We're going to go next back to our Italian delegation and Laura Agea.
Thank you very much, Nigel. Good morning. Thank you very much for being here with us, Mr. Fall. I would like to go back to one of our principles in the five-star movement, which is self-determination for people. The possibility for every people, every nation to be able to decide and to be able to decide on their own context and on their own freedom and independence. So that is something that for us is absolutely fundamental. Now, Brexit and Grexit seem to be moving us towards a scenario that is new and actually bring about a dimension that this Europe that we are in is changing, and the principles that were underlying it that are so important have some sort of fault line. So on the referendum, though, I think that there are two scenarios ahead of us, and we need to have an explanation for these. One, the possibility that the UK does leave the EU, and that will force us to think about what the links, what the relations will be between the EU and the UK. So perhaps on that you could give me your own views, your ideas of what might be the situation. And then the other scenario, if the UK does in fact remain within the EU, what will be the concessions granted that are being negotiated with the Council at the moment, and in particular in the light of the fact that when it comes to Brexit, well, sorry, the speaker says about Greece, there's been a lot of information. The conditions were spelt out, and here, of course, we're not talking about the situation in Greece, but more of freedom from the links in the memorandum. So what is bound in the memorandum. So if the UK is to leave, then what will these concessions be? What will be negotiated? What will be offered to the United Kingdom in order to keep them within the EU? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, obviously, the decision is a matter for the British people and the British Parliament. The European Union treaties are very clear, and we will respect the decision that's taken. I cannot, literally cannot, speculate on what might happen if Brexit occurs, because I don't know, and frankly I don't think anybody knows, because it would depend on the circumstances and the subsequent discussions after that happens. It hasn't been done before, and I don't think any speculation at this stage can be particularly helpful. If the United Kingdom remains in the European Union, then, of course, it's a member state. Whatever has been agreed in the European Council, the commitments, perhaps legal changes, will happen, will occur. And as I said to one of your colleagues earlier, some of them may be, perhaps many of them will be changes in the interests of all member states. All member states may be able to avail themselves of them, but I don't know what they are yet. And it's not until agreement is reached in the European Council that we will see what is possible. But obviously, the search is on for convincing responses to the issues raised by the British Prime Minister in his letter, and responses which meet the interests of all the other member states as well. It's not impossible, it's not easy, and we will see in a few weeks' time how much progress the leaders can make.
I mean, to be fair, Greenland did leave, didn't it? Greenland did leave the European Economic Community, but I don't think she'd signed up to it as a sovereign country in her own right. It was the Danes that had signed her up to it. So
it's not a direct.
No. But just to be fair, Greenland did leave the European Economic Community.
And Algeria left France.
Yes, Algeria left France. No, very good point. Very good point. Okay,
And
moving.
Germany expanded, so...
Yeah, yes. Yeah. Julia Reid.
Thank you, as everybody else has said, for coming to speak to us today. Could you tell us, does your mandate to negotiate include the ability to agree to things that would require treaty change, or have you been asked to only accept proposals that could be implemented without treaty change?
What we have done, and this, I'm not seeking to avoid the question, is to focus on content and then consider how content needs to be implemented. So if responses to the Prime Minister's letter can be found within the existing law, then obviously that is more quickly and readily available to be done and implemented. And I expect that that is the course to be followed for those categories. If legislation is required, then legislation can be made in the European Union, of course. It takes a bit of time, depends on this House, depends on the Council of Ministers, and of course initially depends on a proposal from the Commission. And there may be things outside the bounds of the current treaties which could only be solved if that is what people want to do by amending the treaties. We all know that treaty amendment is a process which takes time. Nobody knows quite how long, depends on the circumstances, and depends at the end of the day on a ratification process in all member states, which can be parliamentary or can be by referendum. So all of those considerations will be in people's minds, but the Commission's focus has been on content. The Prime Minister has raised a series of issues which he says are of particular concern to the British people. We are thinking about those issues. We are trying to resolve them. When we think we have answers on how to resolve them, then we, with our lawyers, have to figure out how that can be done. That process is not yet over.
Yes, I mean, as part of the British negotiation, this is quite a fundamental change, because the Foreign Secretary in the first week of June said that there would have to be fundamental treaty change, and it would appear that the British are not actually asking for treaty change. And I suppose from your perspective, if there was treaty change, it would mean another Irish referendum and perhaps referendums in other countries. So I think it's fair to assume that treaty change will not come out of this, or not fair to assume that?
Frankly, I don't know whether it's fair or not. I think it is simply impossible to assume anything at this stage. We don't know yet what the heads of state or government will agree. It is when we know what they will agree that we can, but it'll have to be pretty simultaneous exercise, that we will be able to pin down exactly what needs to be done to give effect to their agreement. Nothing is ruled out, nothing is ruled in. We all know the timing considerations around various answers, and we want to resolve the issues set out by the Prime Minister.
Okay, fair enough. I think I know where my money is personally, but we will see. Fabio Massimo Castaldo.
Thank you, Nigel, and welcome here, Mr. Fall. It's a pleasure to meet you again after the meeting we had in the AFCO committee. I will continue in Italian.
Well, I must say, I've got just a couple of questions. The first on technical aspects and the last on political issues. Let's imagine the UK doesn't leave the EU. We've still got the issue of the opt-outs on the single policy areas. What about the former third pillar and the 35 opt-in measures after the Lisbon Treaty? It's quite a complicated system, because basically the UK is opting out and in all of the time. So what do you think? Are there going to be more policy areas that are going to be subject to opt-outs and opt-ins? Is it going to be kind of Europe a la carte, where you can pick and choose without any kind of legal certainty within the European legal order? And again on the opt-outs, if this covers more policy areas, members of the European Parliament, well, what about the British MEPs? Would they end up not having a vote on these issues or voting less on this? I mean, if you look at economic and monetary union, they still have votes on that. But, I mean, if we have opt-outs everywhere, then I think it's worth asking that question at least. And then on the EU budget, if there were opt-outs on structural funds or the CAP, I mean, these are large budgetary areas. Would there be a full EU participation in voting the budget? And then I think there has been a comparison made, which is that basically, if the UK were to leave, it would be like being a member of EFTA. So there are comparisons with Switzerland and Norway. This is something that the British government has raised as a possible scenario. Could you imagine some kind of associate member status or something like that without any major kind of review of the conditions? We're talking about political commitments to a future review of the treaties, but do you think that there would be some kind of middle path?
Well, I'm sorry, I don't want to be drawn into speculation about what might happen and what model of other existing in other European countries in their relationship with the EU might be or might not attractive. There are acres of speculation already in the media among think tanks about all of that. The Commission has no position on that. The Commission will not speculate on what may happen as a result of the referendum. On what happens now, we have a European Union in which member states do some different things. Not only the UK, perhaps the UK is the champion, but there are other member states with opt-outs and special protocols and special arrangements which have been negotiated over the years. Are they sustainable? So far they have proved sustainable and workable, and I see no reason why they should not continue. Will there be more? Will there be new opt-outs in future? Again, that depends on what is agreed and how it is implemented. I don't know, is the short answer. But the Commission's role is to make the European system, the European legal system, work as it is, and it does work as it is. United Kingdom, Ireland, Denmark, Poland, various countries in various ways participate in various parts of European activities. The euro is the most obvious, Schengen is another one, but there are many others which are perhaps less visible too, and the European Union as a whole, all 28, its single market, its all 28 policies continue. We've discussed in the context of the euro and the non-euro countries the steps that may have to be taken to organize better that cohabitation, to use the word, and what has already been done in that respect. So far, the European system has proved, I think, adaptive, flexible in dealing with this system without necessarily falling into what you described as an a la carte approach. All of this, by the way, has proved perfectly compatible with the notion of ever closer union among peoples, which has been able to accommodate these developments. But that is also an issue which is under discussion, as you will know from the Prime Minister's letter as well.
Yeah, in many ways, Fabio, since the Treaty of Nice, we've had enhanced cooperation. So some groups of states move more quickly than other groups of states. The point I would make is that regardless of the speed, they're all still going in the same direction. And I think your crystal ball quite accurately predicts that, and I don't expect it'll come from the Commission, but I think, it's very likely that the British Prime Minister will try to sell this, that we now have some form of associate membership, which actually will mean we're pretty much where we are now. But we'll see. But I think that's a word that we're going to hear a lot more of. Thank you. Mike Hookham.
Thank you. Now, the recent activation of Article 42 highlights the growing militarisation of the EU. There is now a wider discussion about permanent structured cooperation and a European Defence Union. In effect, that's an EU army under the Lisbon Treaty. Has the future of defence in the EU and the UK's place within it been part of the discussions on the UK's EU membership?
We are dealing with the matters raised in the Prime Minister's letter.
That's perfectly fair, isn't it? You know where you stand on that. David Coburn.
Hang on. Oh, just before starting, I said Mr. Castaldo's question is very interesting. It sounds like a European version of the West Lothian question. It's very interesting indeed. Okay, Mr. Hall, what is the Commission's current attitude towards international maritime boundaries? Does it accept, for example, that the international law of the sea determines those boundaries by the 200 nautical mile and median lines? Do you see any reason for the Commission to alter its view during or after the renegotiation process? Or does Scotland and the UK have to leave the EU in order to get our 200-mile fishing limit back, which was given away by Heath and Ripon as a price for getting into the EU? Scotland wants its 200-mile limit back and wants employment.
I'm afraid I have to repeat the answer I gave to the previous question. We are dealing with the issues raised by the Prime Minister in his letter.
Okay, I'd ask just simply,
David, it's easy.
Do we have to leave to get the 200-mile limit back?
Yes. Well, I don't think that, that you're going to get an answer to that, because what Jonathan Fall has come to do is to talk about specifically what is being renegotiated, what is not.
No, but I will seek to be. I'm trying to be as helpful and courteous as I can. There are ways in which EU law is amended. The processes, I think, are perfectly clear. And nobody is saying that matters falling outside the terms of the Prime Minister's letter can never be changed because somehow they are frozen forever. This is a living, breathing democracy.
So the answer is no, we have to leave the EU to get our 200-mile limit back. Thank you.
The answer is what I gave you.
Can I call on Patrick O'Flynn, please, for the next question?
Thank you. Is there anything at all that you've identified in Mr. Cameron's requests, notably in the letter to Mr. Tusk, that he's asking for Britain alone, or is everything applicable either to the whole EU or to subgroups such as non-Eurozone members?
There are some things. It depends on what the final agreement is, of course, but there are some possible points of agreement which may reflect the specific characteristics of the United Kingdom and its relationship to the EU. As I said on the euro, it is not as though there are 19 in and 9 out, and the 9 have an absolutely common interest and common views and common status. They don't. They may have common interests, and a lot of them will be very interested in this issue, and the discussions on the banking union showed that the United Kingdom was not alone in making a lot of the points it did. But as I said, the UK is the country with the opt-out, the clear stated intention not to join the banking union, not to join the euro, and with the largest financial centre in the whole continent within its territory. Now that makes for a set of characteristics which may, depending on what is finally agreed, not apply to Sweden or Poland or Bulgaria. We don't know yet. But I think, given the clearly stated from the very beginning objective of finding solutions which work for everybody, given the Prime Minister's repeatedly stated concern that there be a reformed European Union in which the United Kingdom could feel comfortable, I would expect a lot of what emerges to be of interest to more than one single country.
Thank you. Our next questioner is Marco Valli.
Yes, thank you very much, Nigel. Well, just wanted to consider what's going to happen over the course of 2016, we don't really know exactly what's going to happen about the slowdown of the petrol price, the slowdown of the economy, increased interest rates in the US. We've got internal problems within the EU, particularly immigration plus Brexit. So, has anyone at the Commission studied the possible impact of Brexit? On the 13th of January, someone from the Commission talked to Reuters, and it seemed that there's been pretty much an embargo on studying the consequences of Brexit within the Commission, that nobody is allowed to study the impact of this. I don't know if this is true. Is it true that you're not talking about that, and why is it? And then, looking at the political side, what will all this crisis lead to? Well, we've got the 5 presidents report. Well, I mean, Juncker, Draghi, Tusk, they're taking responsibility for the future of 500 million people. Well, who else was it? Schulz. They've set out this roadmap talking about even tighter integration with the Eurozone and pretty much abandoning those countries that are going to be on the outside. Well, this seems to be the scenario that's emerging, so what's happening in the UK is going to be very important. But the main question was the one I asked first. Is it true that there is no study analysing Brexit, and why don't you have one? We do need to talk about all of this. I'm sure you have a responsibility to Europe's people to try and define the economic scenarios. This affects taxpayers. There are a lot of different economic consequences, so maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
We are not considering any speculation about the consequences of a member state leaving the Union. There are lots of studies out there by think tanks and private parties. I'm sure you know them, and I can happily refer you to them, but that is not the Commission's responsibility. The Commission's responsibility is to facilitate this process of discussion and negotiation, which will lead eventually to a referendum. It would be, I think, wrong and certainly impossible to do what you seem to be asking, because nobody can know today what the precise conditions would be in which that scenario took place. One can speculate, but that is exactly what the European Commission has decided that it should not do.
It's a bit like the Euro crisis, you know, at its worst. And the answer to that question, which was asked again and again and again, if a member state was to leave the Eurozone, was there is no plan B. And that's really the same answer we're getting now. I have to say personally, you know, any commercial enterprise anywhere in Europe that doesn't have a plan B, that doesn't have a disaster emergency plan if they come in one morning and it's burnt down, frankly, is not a company that I'd invest money in. And I share Marco's point, and you can say it's not the Commission's job, but it has to be someone's job in these institutions to prepare for what is increasingly looking like it could be a Brexit. But there we are. Jane Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, Mr. Fall. What I'd like to ask, in the discussions, is there a proposal for redefining workers to mean only people earning or working over a certain amount? This will be in order to cut in-work benefits for migrant workers. And if so, what level would that be set at, in your opinion?
Well, I've seen speculation to that effect in the press, and to be very frank, I'm not quite sure what those speculating about it have in mind. The notion of worker is in the European treaties. The European Court of Justice has over the years provided definitions of it. and it may be one of the ideas being considered in one or the other part of Europe. We'll have to see when people start publishing papers and reacting to them, what the outcome of those debates might be. As I said earlier, the Prime Minister has put the 4-year idea on the table and said that he's prepared to look at other ways of achieving his objectives. Emergency breaks, other languages sometimes used, have been talked about. That idea has surfaced as well. There are others. We are looking for ways of maintaining the unity of the European Union's single market and its fundamental freedoms, while giving meaning to the notion that free movement is essential in a single market, but is by no means an unconditional right.
Okay, we're coming towards the end of our time. How many more members would like to ask a question? 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, we're going to rattle through them very quickly. We'll take them all together and let Jonathan Fall close. Gerard Batten.
Thank you very much. I think the whole benefits thing is really irrelevant anyway to the central issue, but never mind. You, Mr. Fall, you said that you're here to talk about EU law and the Commission administering the law as it is. Mr. Cameron speculated about what might be done on benefits. Would it be legal for him to say that we are going to ban the payment of child benefit to people who live outside, or children that live outside of the United Kingdom? Or could he at least restrict it to the amount paid in that country?
Okay. Thank you. Ray, your hammer's up.
Yep. Mr. Fall, given what you said earlier, will the Commission's spending of what you called information rise in the UK during the period of the referendum? And if so, will the Commission register with the UK Electoral Commission for the purpose of the referendum, or does it believe that it's exempt from the rules? Thank you.
Nathan Gill.
Yes, thank you, Nigel. Okay, I know you can't actually speak about what's in the negotiation, but presumably you can talk about what is not, and therefore, can you correct me if the following statement is incorrect? Because it's that the Commission is unable to surrender any part of its right of legislative initiative or exclusive ability to negotiate trade agreements without treaty change. The UK hasn't asked the Commission to return powers back to the Member States in general or to the UK in particular.
And last question, Jim Carver.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fall. What progress has been made on the Prime Minister's desire to end the loopholes that allow easier entry for the third-party spouses of EU nationals compared to British nationals? Thank you.
Thank you very much. On the first question, well, the child benefit issue is one which is certainly being discussed. The current situation, I think you will all realise, is that child benefit is paid to workers by the state in which the worker is working. And the question has arisen, what happens if the worker has children in another country? And therefore, a coordination system has been created by EU law. EU law says nothing about what levels of child benefit should be paid. That's a matter for each country, but we have to coordinate the cross-border situations, which arise, of course. There are workers who, for various reasons, are not living in the same place as their children. And one of the issues, I don't know where it will come out, but one of the issues being discussed is whether some weighting factor could be applied so that the country where the worker lives would take into account some yardstick reflecting the cost of raising a child where the child is. So that's one of the issues certainly under discussion. I think there is understanding that this is an issue which deserves consideration. Will we register with the British Electoral Commission? Are we exempt from its rules? We will comply with any rules that properly apply to us, of course. I don't think, as far as I know, but I'm not an expert on this, you're not really asking the right person, that we have any obligation to register in that way. We're not a campaigning organisation. As I said earlier, we don't seek to be. Will our information expenditure rise in a particular country in a particular year? Well, it depends on what we're doing and who asks us questions. It may well be that from the United Kingdom in the next few months we have all sorts of requests. We're certainly very busy with answering your parliamentary questions, and sometimes we have to do some research to answer them, which is not without cost. So there is no intention to spend extra money. There is no intention to engage in propaganda activities. But to be clear, there is every intention to carry on with the business of the European Union as normal for all its citizens and all its member states. And part of what we do requires to be explained. It can be very complicated what we do, as you know. It needs to be explained to people. We will continue to do that. The Commission's legislative initiative, its role as trade negotiator, frankly, the Prime Minister's letter is perfectly clear. It's clear what he asked for. I can only refer you to that. The issue of third country spouses is certainly a matter for discussion. It's technically, legally complicated, but it is true that, and the United Kingdom is not alone in this, concern has been expressed about the way the rules operate, which may in certain circumstances give a third country, a non-European national, rights of residence because of a partnership with a European citizen using free movement rights, which would not be available in a different factual situation. That is a issue which is being discussed among officials and lawyers. The United Kingdom has gone out explaining it quite rightly to the other member states. It is an issue which will no doubt feature in the discussions.
What can I say on behalf of all of us? Thank you for being a terrific sport. Everybody got a chance to ask a question. Well, I'll see you around the summit in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you very much.